Comic Book Savant, episode 366.
I know this. This I know. All that I have, all that is me, resides inside my poetry. And every time I write a rhyme, it might be the line that sets mine free. And also, I know that I don't.
Welcome to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This week's episode, if you're unfamiliar with this, I do what I call cutting the stack episodes, where I go into, and it's just a full episode of comic reviews. So I'm going to talk about some comics that I recently read, and I'll do non-spoiler reviews on those comics, and hope I bring some things to your attention that you might want to check out. But before we get into that, I'd like to give a shout out to my friends over at the Comics Podcast Network. You can find them over at comicspodcast.com. If you like this show and you're looking for additional content to listen to on your daily commute or just in your day-to-day life, the Comics Podcast Network is a good one-stop shop for tons of comic book related content. Be it if you're looking for a multi-person podcast or a single-person podcast like myself. You have shows that are specific to particular publishers, teams, or characters. So you have a lot of different options. Also, some shows that are video shows, are all just audio podcasts. So it gives you a lot of options to pick and choose from. So if you have a moment, definitely stop by the Comics Podcast Network over at comicspodcast.com. And last but not least, I'd like to give a shout out to my sponsor for this and every episode, which is InStockTrades.com. If you're looking for collected editions of any type, omnibus, ultimate editions, absolute editions, you name it, if it's a bound collected comic, you're going to be able to find it pretty much 9 times out of 10 over at InStockTrades.com. They have great deals. They have discounts ranging from $35, $42 up to 50% off. If you order $50 or more, you get free shipping within the U.S., so you have to be a U.S.-based customer to get that extra bonus of the free shipping. If you happen to listen to this show and you're outside of the U.S., you still can take advantage of all the great savings over at InStockTrades.com. You just don't get the extra bonus of the free shipping, but they have some of the lowest international shipping rates around, so you can still save a ton of money with the deals that they have over at InStockTrades.com. If you have a moment to check out the website, InStockTrades.com, they have deals of the week that they update on the homepage weekly, and those books are automatically 50%. It's a 50% discount. They spotlight anywhere from 5 to 10 different books, sometimes even more than that. So you just have to be on the lookout and check the homepage at InStockTrades.com to see what deals that they have on any particular week. With all that being said and all that out of the way, let's jump into some comic reviews. And, one of my big goals that I said a few episodes back when I was doing my year-end review and stating some of the things that I wanted to do, goals for the show for this year, I wanted to get back to doing more comic reviews. I felt like, with all the different stuff, because, I pride myself doing the Comic Book Savant that I cover all things in the world of the comic book industry. So I cover TV, I cover the shows, the cartoons, the comics. But sometimes, certain areas get neglected because I'm a one-man, podcast. So I can't cover everything. I'm covering more stuff now because I'm doing essentially 2 episodes a week. You hear me here on the podcast, and then I do video for the YouTube channel, and I want to do more of this. So my hope into this year is definitely to get caught up, because I have a humongous stack of comics that I need to read on my Comixology account. I was just looking, I literally have like hundreds of comics stacked up that I want and need to get to. So I'm going to be working on that, and so you'll be seeing a few more comic reviews. You'll still get all the great content you've been getting, but I'll be slipping in on the podcast, even on the YouTube channel as well. If I read a trade or something, I'll throw a quick, review of it. And I've already done some of that too. So if you haven't checked out the YouTube channel, you can always find it at youtube.com /comic book savant. I've some trades that I've read. I've done, short 5 to 8 minute, reviews of the trade. And, so I'll be doing a little bit of that between the two channels. So if you haven't checked out the YouTube channel, take a moment to do that as well, because it's more content there as well. So the books that I'm going to be reviewing this episode, I'm going to be talking about Luke Cage, the new Luke Cage series that launched last year at Marvel. I'm going to be talking about issues 1 through 3, and then I'm going to be talking about the all new Guardians of the Galaxy issues 1 and 2, Generations, The Archer, issue 1 as well. So I'm going to be talking about 3 different books, a few issues each, and this is a Cutting the Stack Marvel centric. I try to do this as well, that I'll focus on a particular publisher and read some books. I normally, you guys, some of the most popular episodes are when I do the Cutting My Stack DC Rebirth. I was going through those different titles, so I thought I'd switch it up this time and hit up Marvel and check out some of these Marvel books. And the great thing is, because I do most of my comics, I pretty much do all my comics digitally now. I have Comixology Unlimited, which is a great service if you haven't checked it out yet. And even if you're looking into dabbling into digital comics, just say that you still buy your comics through like a DCBS or collect through the trade. But if you want to dabble in it, it's a good little service. It's about $6.50 a month. You basically get all the main publishers, including Marvel. DC is not a part of it, but it's staggered. It's kind of like the Marvel Unlimited, as far as they stagger the books. So you won't get a book the week it comes out on the Unlimited service. They normally stagger it a few months and then they release it on there. But it gives me a good chance to read some books that normally I couldn't afford, that are some of the newer Marvel books. So I kind of took a deep dive and checked out some of these relaunch books that they did last year. Coming off the success of the Marvel Netflix series, they've launched the new Luke Cage book. So I figured I'd check it out, and I read the first 3 issues. The creative team the book is written by David F. Walker. We have the artwork being done by Nelson Blake II. The colorist in the book is Marcio Menez. And then we have lettering being done by Joe Sabino. And this is the same creative team that's on all 3 issues that I had a chance to check out. This is a solid book. It is, you kind of jump into a story and you definitely feel like it's a little bit of backstory, history that you would like to know. I don't know much about Luke in the comics. I learned the most, even though I'm an 80s kid, 80s baby. Luke Cage wasn't very prominent. He was created in the 70s during the whole blaxploitation era type thing. Butterfly collar, tiara, the whole 9. Brian Michael Bendis kind of took the character off the shelf and kind of really revitalized him during his run on the Avengers back in the early 2000s, and kind of really put the spotlight on Luke Cage and made him a really cool character, as well as Jessica Jones. And that is where I got to know the character in the present day. Didn't know much about his past. Now, through the Netflix series, I kind of learned a little bit more about the character's origin, his original origin from, the comics. They adapted it pretty well, and it ties back into some of the characters that I learned about, as far as like the doctor that did the experiment on him to give him his superpowers, or his superpowers, his power and his bulletproof skin or what have you. So that character kind of ties in, which we got a chance to see during the Netflix series. So that I had a rough concept of that, but it was my first time really reading it. It jumps full blown into this first story arc that ties into like the history that other people, the doctor did experiments on other people, and he's kind of dealing with this mess of a situation that he, this whole new world that Luke didn't know about that went on after the experiments were done on him. So it ties into like the deep roots of Luke Cage's comic book history, which I'm not that familiar with. It's a solid story. The writing on it is pretty straightforward. He definitely writes from the perspective of Luke. We're kind of playing catch up to all the different people he's interacting with. And again, he's learning more and more information, but they're kind of spoon feeding him information, trying to kind of manipulate him around. So you're not totally informed as the reader going into it. The artwork by the creative team, as far as Blake and Menez, is solid. It's right on point. I can't complain about anything but the artwork. It's solid. Now, a lot of times it's easy nowadays that you'll see, pencils from issue to issue kind of jump all over the place. I really feel like I'm not familiar with Nelson Blake's artwork like that. He reminds you at points when I see his artwork, his pencil work reminds me of a kind of, he has a 90s image style in a way to his artwork, but better. It's refined. I saw some of the panels and it took me back in the mind of Liefeld when he was young. Not Liefeld now, because his artwork, the last artwork I kind of seen from Liefeld was kind of horrible, which was never awesome, but he had a very unique style. And Blake kind of reminds me, but it's better artwork, but it kind of reminds me of early Liefeld work. Just the way the faces are shaped off and some of the different artists that worked on some of the Liefeld projects, and even some of the Wildstorm stuff for Jim Lee. It reminds me of some of the young artists back in the 90s that were doing work for them. It's very reminiscent of their kind of house style that they kind of had. Again, the color work is good. It's a very solid book. The one thing I could say, it was nothing overwhelming about this book that like pulled me in. Again, the only reason I'm really reading it is that I had access to it through the first 3 issues right now through the Comixology Unlimited. So I figured I'd give it a try. Eventually I want to complete the story. As the other issues come available, I at least want to read the first story arc. I normally will give a new comic the first trade to see if it hooks me and catch me. Like I said, it's not bad. It's not mind-blowing either. This is kind of like a middle-of-the-stack book. I can't recommend you to be like, oh, you got to run out and buy Luke Cage. I would highly recommend you watch the Netflix Luke Cage series before taking the time to do that than reading this comic. I gave it a 6 out of 10 across the board for all 3 issues, which is a rating for me. Wait for the trade. Like I said, if you go into in-stock trades, get the trade of the first trade of Luke Cage, and you're spending less than $10 for it, and you're a huge Luke Cage fan, then I feel like it's worth picking up. I'll say this too, because I don't know much about Luke Cage's full-on comic book history. If you're a diehard Luke Cage fan, you might get more of the Easter eggs and references that are being referenced in this comic, so it might play better for you. But since I have a very limited knowledge of Luke Cage's history in the comics, I feel like if I was more of a fan and I knew all the history, then this would play a little bit better, and it would be like a 7 or an 8 if I knew that history. But I'm not versed in it, so just for your normal comics fan, I say it's a middle-of-the-road, middle-of-the-stack type book, 6 out of 10. Next, I want to talk about all new Guardians of the Galaxy. This is written by Jerry Dugan. Artwork is done by Aaron Kruder. Colorist is Ive Sorcino. It's Svorcina. I don't necessarily know how that's pronounced. Forcino. I don't know if the S is silent in that. I think it would be, but I'm not sure. And the lettering is done by Corey Pettit. I read the first 2 issues of the all-new Guardians of the Galaxy series. I think Brian Michael Bendis was writing the series before they ended his series and then jump-started a new series last year, bringing Jerry Dugan on. And I think the book has been doing pretty well. Now, this book hit me a little bit differently because I'm a big fan of the Guardians movies. Not a huge fan of the first one. I like the second one a lot better. And this was very much captured the vibe of the Guardians of the Galaxy that I know from the movie. So coming in, again, not ever reading Annihilation and all that stuff where that whole cosmic universe got built back up for Marvel back in the 90s, in the early 2000s, when they did those big events and slowly built back up their cosmic universe. I kind of missed it. I read a little bit of it, a few issues here and there, but I never read like Annihilation and the follow-up to Annihilation. And then they did the whole individual mini-series for all the characters where they really took the time building up all these characters. I missed it. I got a couple, I picked them up on sale where I picked up, I think the original series when the first Guardians movie came out that they relaunched. I think it was 20-some issues. I have it in my Comixology to read. Again, this was the most current, and I figured, let me just give it a try to see how it was. And I was pleasantly surprised reading the first issue. It totally felt like the Guardians I knew from the movie. It was that team. I know over the years, Guardians of the Galaxy had a lot of different lineups. But it was very familiar. It was what I knew coming off of Guardians 2. And it just felt like an extension of the movie Crazy Heist, the banter between the team members back and forth. It really felt comfortable. So the first issue I gave a 7 out of 10 for. Definitely a good read I could recommend. Now, I got into the second issue. It delved a little bit more into some of the things in the history that had been going on, I guess, in the previous series. So coming in as a new reader, I kind of felt like some of the momentum that I got as a new reader coming into the first issue was lost because I didn't know specific plot lines that had happened in the series before. And they just were kind of shown, and you weren't given any context to what those events were and why certain characters were in the predicament they were in, what had happened. So, excuse me. So I kind of felt lost coming in as a new reader, and you never want to have a new potential reader come into your situation to check out your book and they feel lost or they feel like it's definitely information that they're missing to get the full enjoyment of the story. And that happened in both of these two series that I read at one point. Like I said, the first issue was strong for Guardians, but in the second one they started touching on some aspects of previous arcs, and they weren't kind of set up to let new readers know what kind of happened. So, I kind of feel like in the dark. So that was the only drawback for that. I give this issue 2 a 6 out of 10. Again, Jerry Dugan is definitely a good writer. He had a good run on Deadpool. Now he's doing this. He has great dialogue in his books. Action was solid. I've seen Aaron Kruger's work for a while. I think I first was exposed to Kruger's work way back in the mid-2000s when Robert Kirkman was doing the Marvel Team Up series. I want to from the artwork I saw, I'm pretty sure Kruger did some work for Kirkman on that Marvel Team Up series for Marvel way back in the day. I'm pretty sure that style looked very familiar. If I'm wrong, I do apologize, but I think I have to go back and reference that for sure, but I think I've seen his work other places before. So again, solid book. Again, not anything like, I feel like it might be worth checking this out via trade if you like the Guardians movies and you want to stick it out. But I feel like certain aspects they're touching on in this series, definitely you might want to dive deeper in the last series and try to last few issues of the previous series to kind of get an idea like what plot threads we're dangling that they're touching on here, because I definitely feel like I'm missing a piece of vital information that would help me understand it more, which is cool that I'm getting back into reading a few more current comic books, because I've been reading so much stuff like independent when I do read comics or things that are in their own little pocket universe that is interesting, diving back into like the main comic books universe and all these different things constantly going on. So it's definitely interesting. Last but not least is Generations, The Archers. This is kicking off the whole coming out of Secret Empire, and Generations is the next kind of phase of the Marvel U at this point. And it's The Archers is focused on Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, but the story is kind of it's weird because it's a one shot and it's not set up extremely well, which I'll talk about that in the end. I felt like that was a problem with all the Marvel books right now, as far as the ones that I read in this sitting of comic book reading over the weekend, is that in this book, let me give you the creative team. We have it's written by Kelly Thompson. The artwork is done by Stefano Raphael. Colorist is Digicore, and the lettering is done by Joe Sambino. And I gave this a 6 out of 10. The main reason why I gave it a 6 out of 10 is that the book is really not set up well at all. The premise is it's this tournament on an island that is for all the best marksmen in the Marvel universe. So Hawkeye, Kate Bishop Hawkeye, appears on this island, and then Hawkeye, Clint Barton, he shows up, but it's him from a different period of time, I guess when he just started out as Hawkeye. So he doesn't know that Kate is his mentor, and they both share the name Hawkeye. He doesn't know about many characters. You see Bullseye, you see the different marksman, assassin characters that's kind of filled the Marvel universe, over the years. They're all on this planet, but you find out they're all kind of plucked from different times, and something went kind of wrong because they gathered too many villain marksmen, and they have these belts where if you hit the belt, it teleports them back to their place in time and what have you. But the supervillains are like, hey, I can take out my competition, so they're actually killing people. So the two Hawkeyes kind of team up to kind of stop the killing and to get these people back to their right place in time. Well, long story short, it comes into that the mentor for Hawkeye, Clint Barton, which is Swordsman, has a new mentee, I guess, a new protege. That's the word I was looking for. Underneath him, and she has these powers to manipulate time, and she's doing this plan for the Swordsman, bringing all these people together for this, supposed to be a tournament to prove who's the best, but he's really doing it to try to sway Clint back to him. And it's not set up well. It's very convoluted in the explanation, and I'm trying to condense the story the best I can. It comes out of nowhere. I don't know how you don't know how Kate gets on this island. She doesn't have a belt like the rest of the people, rest of the participants. So she got pulled there somehow by accident. Then she's trying to keep quiet that she knows Clint, and what have you, because he's from a different time and place, and he's suspicious of her at first. And then she's like, I'm a friend of Black Widow, so that's why I know about your identity and everyththing like that. So it's a fun story because Kate and Clint play so well off each other. If you've ever read the Matt Fraction Hawkeye series. It's like 21 or 22 issues. Phenomenal. I've talked about it before in previous episodes. If you just go to comicbooksavant.com, you use the search bar and just type in Hawkeye. You should see where I reviewed previous comics and episodes where I do a deep dive into the series and previous Cutting the Stack episodes. So it has good banter back and forth between them, and I always love seeing them together because they're so they play so well off one another. But the rest of the story just didn't make a lot of sense. And kind of at the end, they're the last two standing. They saved the day, quote unquote. And it's just talking there, and like she fades off. We don't know where she's going. We never know why she got there. What was the purpose of it? Who sent her? Like So it was, again, I didn't know. I think I bought this. I think this was on sale, so I didn't actually get access to this through the Comixology Unlimited. I think it was a sale for the Generation First issue one-shots they did. And I if you've listened to the show any length of time, I love my vigilantes and I love my non-powered heroes. And so I love Hawkeye, I love Green Arrow, I love the Archers, and I love both Hawkeyes. So I was just a sucker for it. I think it was on sale for like 99 cents. So I picked it up. I don't necessarily know if it's worth the 99 cents. Just not that the artwork's not good or that the story's just convoluted. And again, it just seems like it's a symptom. And here's my problem with that. I don't mind buying good comics. But I was talking about this last year when I talked about the state of the comic book industry. And we have prices, going up and up more and more for these comics. And I don't mind if I got to pay $3, $4, $5 if it's top notch. You know what I mean? My dollar is becoming less and less. Being a family man, father, grandfather, all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't have the budget I had when I first started the show a decade ago, where I just, I could spend $200 a month, $150 a month on comics. I can't do that anymore. So, I have to stretch my dollar, and I want to know when I, put my money down on a book, it's going to be worth the read. Now, services like Comixology Unlimited and, these different digital platforms do allow me to have access to more comics, which is great because for me doing a podcast, I want to give you guys a good assortment of books that I read. I'm open to reading anything, at least give it a try. But again, it just seems like it's quantity over quality because these books are all flawed in one way or another. They're solid books, but they're not a $4 issue comic. They're not. They're just not what I would consider. It might be different for everyone else. But I feel like it's definitely with the flaws. These are like, I know it's inflation and things. I can't get comic books for 75 cents like I could, when I was a kid, or at least like when I was in high school. You paid, the highest you paid for, and it was an Image comic book, you paid $1.99. I realize those days are long gone, but for the level of quality that you're getting just in the stories and being pulled in, and it was nothing so great about any of these three series that I tried, or the two series in a one shot, that would drive me to be like, I want to read this so bad I'll pay for it. Like, I will wait and I will read more Luke Cage as it becomes available on Comixology Unlimited. Guardians of the Galaxy, though I'm a fan of them, I feel like, it's bits and chunks that in the writing didn't pull me in to be like, oh, I gotta go read the previous series. It's more like, oh, if I want to know what the heck they're talking about, I want to read the previous series. It doesn't, like, this is so good, now I'm going to read everything Guardians. So I think it's a misstep in the writing there that it doesn't, because those are the books that suck you in, and then it's like, I want to read everything from that writer or see everything that artist did before. And these books don't pop like that. They're all just came out to me as middle of the stack, bottom of the stack books. Like, if you're a fan of Luke Cage, boom, you'll buy it. You're not going to read it right away, but you'll get to it eventually. Same thing about Guardians, and the same thing about the Archers, Generation Archers one shot. Good, not great, but not subpar. So they're just meh. And you don't want comics that you're paying that much money for to be just meh. You want them to be good. Or so I feel. But that's all I have for you guys this week when it comes to the realm of comic book reviews. Like I said, I'm going to be trying to do more of these sprinkled in. I probably will do, you'll see more like they're themed on publisher. Then I'll jump around from publisher to publisher. I'll do a DC, I'll do a Marvel, I'll do an Image, and I'll jump around. I got some Valiant books I need to get to as well that I want to read. So, in Dark Horse. So I'll jump around to all the different publishers, and I'll have particular episodes spotlighting them. And then after I do a few of those, because again, I have a huge backlog, then I will, I'll just have an episode where I'm just doing random books, whatever I read. But I'm trying to, because I'm so behind on everything, I am trying to focus on a particular publisher. And if you're a Marvel fan, boom, you can reference this episode and be like, oh, James tried out these books over at Marvel. Let me see if, that interests me. So I'm going to kind of stick to that format going right now. Before I go any further, I want to do my shameless plug. If you haven't already and if you like the content that I put out on this podcast or even on the YouTube channel, definitely take a moment if you could and check out my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Comic Book Savant. It's patreon.com/Comic Book Savant. If you like the content and you listen to the content and you want to help support the show, you can do that over at the Patreon. If you don't want to do that, there's other ways you can help support the show. I talked about it a few episodes ago. I need your guys' support to help growing the show and to do more things, update equipment. You should have heard, if not this episode, for sure next episode, I got some new music to add into the show because I've had the same theme song. So I got some instrumentals. I found a producer, friend of mine that did me a solid and hooked me up with some new beats to try to freshen things up. I did an update to the logo and graphics a little while ago. So I'm keeping, trying to evolve the show and spread it through the different platforms. But again, there's other ways. If you can't financially support the show at this point, I could understand it. I appreciate you being part of the community and helping me grow the show. Follow me on Twitter. I've been getting more and more people following me there. I appreciate it. I've been getting all your guys' Facebook likes. I appreciate it. The Facebook page is facebook.com/Comic Book Savant. Please, oh please, if you listen to the show and you want more content, head over to the YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Comic Book Savant. I have about, I think, like 26 videos up now. I started it about, I want to say maybe October, November last year. So I've been doing at least one video a week. Again, like I talked about in the year in review episode, I'm going to be trying to do more content. I'm going to grow it as the year goes along. And like I said, your support means a ton. And I said, eventually I might be moving the show over to more of a video format on YouTube to help generate revenue, to help me do the things to keep the show going. So, the Patreon's been there forever, but I haven't really gotten a lot of support via the Patreon. But I'm putting it out there because it's very important for the show to keep the show going forward. That if you guys enjoy the content, you listen to it week in, week out. I mean, if you can go to Patreon and contribute at least $1 a month, $2 a month. I have different tiers. I'm going to grow it out. I want to do different tier rewards. But, I need Patreons to kind of think of it. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I try to think of, I think I have a tier. The beginning tier is like $2. So that will help ensure that I can keep the costs up with doing the audio podcast. Because if not, YouTube is a free platform. I can put out episodes there, and I don't have all the back-end expenses that I have now because what I get through the one sponsor doesn't cover all the costs now. All that stuff inflation has gone up over time. So Again, operating costs. I don't make any profit from doing the show. It costs me money to do the show. And I want to keep it as free as possible. So it's one of those things where I offer you an avenue to contribute, and then I seek out ways to try to generate revenue to keep things free for you. So if you just love the content and you want to help support and grow the show, you have the Patreon. If you go to the website, and I can't encourage you guys enough to, even if you can't donate to the Patreon, I have a direct PayPal link where if you just want to do a one-time donation of $1, $5, whatever it is, you can do that as well. You can always go to the website, and I always keep the website up regardless of anything else. So it's a hub where you can find all the content that I'm putting out. I might start doing blog posts there. I know a lot of people are on the go, so that's why I try to keep it audio or video. So, but I want to do some editorials and do some fun lists there that you can have access to as well. But I have a ton of links to other podcasts that I've collaborated with. It's a cool search mechanic in there, so I tag all the episodes. So if you're looking for a particular subject or a certain movie review, you can just key it in and you should be able to pull it up to see the previous episodes. You know, we have a huge backlog. We're at 366 episodes in counting now. So it's a ton of a backlog. So if you ever want to know if I covered something previously, you definitely can do it there. But again, check out the website. All the links are there to all the various things. The Patreon, the Facebook group. We have a Facebook group. We've had a couple of people asked to join. It's a closed group. You can find it by just doing a search for Comic Book Savant discussion group, and then you just click that you want to be a member, and then I'll approve it immediately, and then you can post in there. So I'm trying to do a lot of different things, a lot of different places to make this as interactive as an experience as possible. So utilize those resources. I put a lot of time and work to give you guys different avenues. I want it to be a joint experience, not just, me. I'm doing not doing the show just for me. I do it for us as a community. I want to get back to how the show started, and this being a community interactive experience where you guys contributed as much to the show as I did, and I talk about things that you guys are interested in as much as things that I'm interested in, and it just makes it a fun back and forth type situation. So don't hesitate. If it's something you want me to talk about, when you hit up the Facebook group, send me a message and say, hey, can you cover this? I'd like if you could cover that. Have you ever read this story? Those suggestions, it's hard after 12 years to constantly come up with. I haven't ran out of ideas yet, but sometimes a nudge in the right direction could really be helpful. So, submit show ideas and so forth, and definitely I will look into doing it, because I want to talk about the stuff that you guys are interested in, not just what I'm interested in. But again, that's all I have for you guys for this week. I'll see you guys again next week for another episode of Comic Book Savant. And check out the YouTube channel. I'm going to plug it to death. YouTube.com/Comic Book Savant. Go drop that subscription to the YouTube channel and click the notification bell so you can get notified when new episodes drop. All right. I'll see you guys again next week for another episode. Take care and have a good week.
And into lyrical wholeness. And I know this. This I know.